to the cloud. All right, so this meeting is just about talking about the Marketo Bizible connector and how to set it up. So I was hoping hopefully Leslie will hop on, but Jackie, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this. So I went over it, Robert, I don't know if you went over it, Jackie, you did, Leslie did too, of maybe moving touch points over to Marketo Bizible. I think that's a great solution. I think at the end of the day, I think my main takeaway here was we should do it and try to use the Marketo Bizible connector more so than the Salesforce Bizible connector for like campaign touch points. And that's just essentially you're removing the middleman that is Salesforce. So this will be, I mean, I think we could pilot it out with BrightTalk, because I know Jackie, like we can't capture UTMs, but we're able to map UTMs from Marketo to Bizible on that touch point. But if we go through the campaign, we miss those UTMs. So BrightTalk's perfect for like registration. I think the biggest or the hardest thing about all of this is like not double counting. So turning off the touch points for like the campaigns that are still running, while also transitioning over. Rob, the link to the webinar, I think that's really good for you to read up on.
Yep, I looked at that a little bit.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, skip the first like 20 minutes.
Yep,
but
so that.
But I think what I'd like to talk to the team about, and I pulled up a sheet. It looks like I didn't add it here, of like, pull it up. And I'll add it to the chat here. This is just like my initial thoughts, and I can share my screen here. You
have access to that.
I had to request access.
Oh, my bad.
Transparency.
I always hit the wrong button. Sorry, friends. Just still not prepared. Okay. So I just did a quick breakdown. Here are all the channels we have. And then I just thought of a couple custom activities. I think this one we can kind of debate of like email opens, email clicks. Is that a useful touch point? Is that going way overkill? I think like sometimes you get false positives with emails and clicks, but sometimes it actually lead to
double. I think it might lead to double counting because email is captured as the UTM like medium when people take action either in Path Factory or in landing pages. So it should be captured otherwise. We can talk more about that theoretically.
I think I agree. I definitely don't think that email opens should be captured.
False positive, yeah.
Right, the clicks we might want to, that and not just false positives, but email opens aren't that strong of a buying signal.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas clicks would be, as long as we're avoiding the double counting. So maybe if we can get granular on specific clicks, that might be an option.
Yeah. Like anything they're clicking on in most cases is either going to be driving them to register for a like on a landing page or go to a Path Factory track. But in some cases, maybe we can't. So it might be useful. I would consider with that.
Would we want to capture? So I send Jackie an email and she clicks on it, and she goes to the registration page and says, F this isn't what I'm interested in. Do we want to still see that you clicked that email even if you didn't register for whatever the CTA was?
I think what might happen is dilution though with the other touch points. So if everything's weighted the same, email clicks are going to start diluting everything.
On that, we are moving away from linear attribution to a custom weighting model.
Oh, okay.
As I explained with Todd and others who have listened to me rant, the linear attribution model was always meant to be a holding place so that we capture all of the data and can build a custom model around what GitLab's business looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the issues I just opened for Rob and myself, is to implement the custom model based on Bizible suggested machine learning.
Awesome.
That's great.
It's always meant to be a placeholder or like a in between to inform the custom model.
Right. And we'll still look at linear the same way that we compare linear to full path to W now. We'll also have custom to look at.
Mhm.
That sounds great. It's like every business has a different way of looking at it and needs to be adjusted to that specific business just to make it your own. Also, I wasn't totally sold on the linear attribution model. I was also thinking it should be more something that you look into from time to time, maybe to compare it to other models and to determine whether or not this is good for you.
Give me 10 minutes with you. I'll sell you on linear.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, I'll have to schedule another coffee chat.
Cool. So
Great.
I think we can probably take offline too of just like some of the different custom activities. Drift could be a great one too. I was talking to Beth about this a little bit. We're kind of throwing them all in, I think 2 Salesforce campaigns, one like a demo type and then just a regular talk, but we can fix the Marketo drift connector we have and make it better to actually capture some stuff around it. But we can talk about all the different custom activities. I can create an issue for that. So we can talk about, okay, what do we want to capture? What do we not want to capture? What's available to capture, et cetera. But I think like the one, and I think we're all in agreement, or maybe I'm just talking enough to make me think you are, but moving to the Marketo to Bizible makes a lot of sense and removing that middleman of Salesforce. The one thing we need to like really consider though is like for the registered touch points that are captured online. So like all our webcasts are, well, we have like our Zoom webcasts and then we have our BrightTalk webcasts. And if they're captured on Zoom, that's an online touch point because we capture that registration on our site. But if we do through BrightTalk, it's offline. So when we build out those filters in Bizible, we'll need to figure out either like through a naming convention or something like, you know, only capture registered if the campaign name starts with like BrightTalk or you know, whatever we just decide. Because if we capture all registered for webcasts, we're going to double count the online touch points.
Yeah. We can maybe handle that with the naming convention in Marketo and say contains BrightTalk and just have that in.
Are you also able to capture attendance from the Marketo? Okay, because I think that would be more powerful than registration because registration is captured as a form. If we set the webcasts and events to it, essentially, if we're replacing the Salesforce campaign touch points, then replicate that logic of that responded status, the engagement success.
Yep.
So attended or visited booth, those kinds of things that we are already capturing. And that would prevent the double touch points because then we see both a registered and a attended touch point, which I see value in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've talked about this for probably the past, since we've got Bizible, was for registration for webcasts or virtual events in general, having a touch point both when they register, because that is a specific motion that they're showing interest, but then actually attending it. I think we've always gone back and forth on should those have the offline touch point when they actually attend. But this will make it a lot easier for us to have the flexibility.
Yeah, we should be able to do like in the filters itself, like say, okay, if they registered touch point, as long as it's not online, already captured online, you know, through whatever filter there. And then the success thing is the same. So responded is a success. So you see attended, follow up, and attended on demand are all success. So we can say channel webinar is success, capture touch point. And then at that point, you need to disable the Salesforce touch point. So it's kind of like that. We got to do those two in sync, but.
Right. And luckily, I don't know what that lift looks like on your side to enable Marketo, but we can do a rapid data loader to update all of the campaigns en masse.
Yep. Well, the good thing with Marketo, I mean, it's already set up like this. So once, like I'll connect the two, like the connection between Marketo, Bizible, set that up. And then in Bizible, it's a toggle like, okay, I want program on, but then you have to create the filter. So I'd suggest creating the filters first, doing the data load, and then turning it on kind of thing. Or we can start with one, test that out, make sure it works, and then roll out the next one.
Okay.
Nothing on my end with Marketo other than like the actual setup.
All right. And I imagine, much like with most of Bizible, that this is retroactive as well. So when we disable the visible touch points on the campaigns, it will retroactively remove those touch points. And
it would, yeah. It's kind of like saying, should it show up in reports or should it not? So if you say exclude, or you just take off the create visible touch point or enable visible touch point for this Salesforce campaign for responded status, you're not actually point in time saying stop making touch points. You're just saying don't put them in the reports, right, Robert?
correct.
Okay, we might want to, do we have like a CSM at Bizible for this? Because
Yes.
the last thing I want to do is remove everything and then it's gone.
Yeah, we have both our Marketo general CSM and then one of the people of the brain trust there, his name is Pierre. I've had a couple of conversations with him. We should probably reach out to Edgar and CC Pierre to discuss what we're doing here once we have a battle plan and get them to give a once over on it.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, this is kind of what I put down. I stopped after this one because I ran out of time, but these are just the different touch points we'll want to capture for each of the channel types. And then I put like online, offline, if there's a like notes, basically, if we're like, uh-oh, because like for Alice programs, we'll need to have the Salesforce connector because there's no Marketo program. You know, and then if there's a, I don't know the process and how to set it up for the future to tell people like, hey, if there's an online registration, like you need to mark it as such or name it as such so it doesn't get pulled in through the Marketo Bizible connector. I think that's like the hardest thing I'm kind of wrapping my head around. So like for the gated content, it's kind of like that. Certain, you know, field events. I mean,
we can go through this one separately too, unless at the end of this call maybe, but like this is going to be, it's because you've already outlined it, it's going to be easier to talk through.
And then the other connector is the people connector. I think all that does is it allows Marketo IDs and Salesforce like tracking IDs and Bizible IDs to all kind of talk together. So then it starts picking up all the web traffic around all the different cookies it's placed on those users. So that seems like that's all it is. It just gives us a better idea of who the person is because we've captured them in different areas with different cookies. So that seems pretty, I mean, you have to have it enabled to do this other stuff. So
that means so that you could put a touch point, for example, if somebody visited the pricing page. I guess we actually could do that through Marketo anyway. With Marketo Track.
I mean, well, that we could do it as a custom activity or Marketo tracks all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's reflected in the scoring as well. So I think that's what I talk about here. Yeah. So I think the next step is kind of just discuss some of the stuff we want to capture. If we want to pilot it with BrightTalk, I think that would be awesome. So Jackie's team can start using that again. But I think I kind of set this up to be like, here you go.
I think mapping out BrightTalk and Drift would be high value. Drift was one of the things I was trying to address through activity touch points and just had difficulty doing. I would say those are probably the low hanging fruit and best targets to address just because they seem simultaneously easy and valuable, and we can't do it another way.
Yeah, the Drift might need some configuration on my end. I don't know. I haven't been able to look into that. I have an open issue somewhere for it, but
if it can capture UTMs too, Like, is there any way to do that?
Yeah, so what it does is like when you're setting it up, you can map Marketo custom fields to Bizible custom fields.
Okay.
So I say like UTM content,
Mhm.
go into this Bizible content touch point field. So you just map them that way. I mean, I can map anything.
This
So
is going to be so powerful.
yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah. And that'll work with like, I mean, possibly in the future, like list loads too. If I know field marketing has given Jameson a couple of lists sometimes when it's like, hey, can you capture that we got this guy, via email, or we got him during, this event or this partner or something like that. And, it's like, well, I mean, we can add it in. It's not going to go anywhere. So,
Yeah, the partner piece would be actually really interesting. I think if we can start, because the alliance partners will be more included within the GTM motions. And Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the intent would be, so like if we're looking at a dashboard, we could say, how is this GTM motion performing? But I think we'd want partners broken out as a separate like thing, to separate checkbox list. So you could say, yes, we were leveraging AWS with GitOps or GCP with CI. But right now, how we had set it up, we'd seen kind of partners as a separate motion. You'll see like AWS partner campaign or GCP partner campaign. But that would be maybe something that would be relevant for what you just said. Like if they could upload that this was through X partner and have it actually show up in the dashboards. That'd be interesting.
Were you talking to me or to Robert?
Robert, like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of change coming though with the dashboards overall, right? So that's one thing that if they're saying that they want to say, oh, this came from a given partner, I think that would be relevant to try to capture in these touch points so we could see it when you actually toggle the different partner names.
Absolutely. If we had a partner sourced field on the Bizible object, or whatever we're going to call it, that way we can both have it as a filter and its own chart to cohort the data.
Yeah. Yes.
okay. I mean, I think, I don't know if there's anything else. I feel like we kind of ran through this pretty quickly, and we're all in alignment. So that made it pretty simple.
Yeah. One other piece that I put in here a little bit was on the issue for data loading the existing Bizible touch points from BrightTalk, like what we've been running since September, that isn't currently in any of our dashboards because we didn't have that connection. I've been playing around with the data because I just like am remembering a lot of things that I did a couple of years ago when I would do data loader from BrightTalk before they had a connector. So I can set up time with whoever that would be relevant to share with. They have a lot of unique like UTM source values that wouldn't necessarily translate, I don't think, over to our source values. Or maybe we want to simplify them. So that might be a separate issue to talk through. One for the data loader and then one for how do we actually want their UTM sources and UTM mediums to show up in our dashboards.
I'm happy to go through that with you, Jackie.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if we have a problem with double counting touch points, keeping in mind the fact that in Salesforce we have the parent and child relationship, while in Marketo we don't. I'm not sure if that comes into play at all into this.
No, because the parents don't actually have anyone in them, and those should be excluding touch points. So all the campaigns should be essentially one-to-one.
Well, that makes sense.
This should simplify that too. A little less confusion.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. Overall, more powerful, more customized, and like there's so much we can do with this to clear up some of the data that we were missing without the connection. So thank you for prioritizing this. Great.
Happy to. Okay, cool. I think
Do you want to walk through the specifics that you had while we're on the call, or do you want to just do that separately in an issue?
probably separately in an issue, because honestly, outside of what I've outlined, I'm not sure if there's any, like Sixter could be a cool one. If there's clicks on a Sixter email or a Sixter signature, that could be something that's kind of cool to catch.
I think that goes along the lines of the email click, which actually I'm starting to see more what Robert's perspective of, like, if they're clicking the email but they don't convert, like same with Sixter, it is somebody taking that action to click something we can change the weighting of in your custom model, because that would actually be really interesting to start to see in the
An
future.
important note on the custom model, it's only based on touch point stage, not touch point type.
Okay. That's, I mean, that's good to know, because that's what I was kind of thinking.
Right. Unfortunately, that's not available. There's some potential in the future, like next fiscal year. There's a product that I'm going to try and get budget for that gives us access to a lot more visible data, where then we would be able to custom weight those types of things. I also might be able to do something like that in Sisense.
Mhm.
But for now, the custom model is only based on touch point stage, but we are adding some additional stages like MQL and SAO as touch point stages to the first touch, last touch, lead creation, op creation.
Okay, so basically you can set up the model itself to put more emphasis on the actions that are more towards the top of the funnel and the ones that are more towards the bottom of the funnel, or you can change that. That's how you make it custom, right?
Right.
When you say stage.
You customize the weight of what the position is. So currently we only have first touch, lead creation, opportunity creation, close. Last touch is in there. We're going to add MQL and SAO as stages, and then our custom model will give different weighting to the touch points in those positions.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
similar to how you can weight differently with W or U.
Right.
First touch, last touch, and
Exactly.
Only that you probably select the exact amount of weight you want to give on each stage.
Yes. Yeah. And you and I will go over that. I just opened an issue this morning for you and I, and I'll show you that. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing.
Perfect.
excellent. Anything else, Amy? Or Rob or Robert?
Oh, for me.
No, I'm good.
All right, thanks for your work on this. This is really exciting, and we'll work through what we got to do for Bizible or Bright Talk. That'll be great to get going again, so we can start replaying some of our webcasts, and it'll make it more efficient for us to do some top funnel activity. So stoked.
Sounds good. Okay.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.